This is Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're still with us. We are joined by Praveen Shankar. He is a professor at Cal State Long Beach in aerospace engineering, mechanical and aerospace engineering. There's been a lot of discussion over the last several years about drones, and I want to speak with you about that during our discussion. The most important question I have, I think, is what is a drone? What is an unmanned aerial vehicle?
Well, an unmanned aerial vehicle, just as the name suggests, it's an aircraft or a rotorcraft that is not manned. There are several types of unmanned aerial vehicles and the way they are operated. Most of the ones that you see they are remotely operated, but there are ones that basically fly on their own, and they're called autonomous.
Yeah, and that's my question. So when you think about drones, let's say there's a drone strike, a military use, is there someone on some ship that's directing it? The drone has an eye, and so that person sees what the drone sees, or do they tend to be autonomous?
I guess there are different types. When it comes to actual military use and maybe drone strikes, I'm guessing that there is always an operator who makes the decisions.
Okay.
But if it is surveillance and reconnaissance, I'm assuming there are going to be more autonomous vehicles there.
It's interesting. I was reading some materials you provided me, and within the materials, there was some discussion about the word drone and its cachet in modern culture. Some would argue that the mere use of the word drone takes a negative connotation. What's your sense of that? Are drones getting a bad rap?
That's an interesting question. We always see drones in a negative light because the news that comes out, when people write about it, it's always something bad that happened, whether it is a drone landing on the White House lawn or a drone used in a military strike.
Right. Recently we heard President Obama speak about how a drone strike, I guess it was in January, in Pakistan, was successful in taking out a series of al-Qaeda operatives. Sadly, the United States was not aware that there were 2 Western hostages, including one American, Warren Weinstein, as well as an Italian. And so, sure enough, blasted all over the headlines, drone strike kills 2 Western hostages.
Yes.
And so, do we need to look at drones in a different way? Are drones, at least the future of them, something that can benefit us outside of a military use?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be so many commercial applications of these vehicles. The reason we don't see much of them right now is because the regulations are not in place to actually have to operate these vehicles.
And let's talk about commercial uses or non-military uses. So my daughter is in 7th grade. She plays soccer. Mm-hmm. She's in 7th grade. She plays soccer. Yet we went to a soccer game, and I kind of had my eye distracted for a second. I'd look up, and there's something flying over the field. I didn't know what it was. I turned to another parent, and I said, "What is that?" They said, "That's a drone." And sure enough, the other team was filming the entire game via drone. I was stumped.
Right. And, that brings up the question of ethics, the question of privacy. So they're getting a competitive advantage by making a video of the game from a perspective that not other people are getting it. And then there's privacy. I mean, we see drones flying into somebody else's backyard.
Right.
And if it invades privacy, then that's an issue. So who's going to control those? Who's going to regulate those?
So hasn't the FAA started hinting that they may get involved?
FAA is actually quite involved, and they are working really hard to get this going because they understand that the positive aspects of unmanned aerial vehicles much outweighs the negative aspects. So once it gets into the commercial space, you'll see improvement in efficiency, whether it be delivering packages or pizza.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because I have to be honest with you, I'm ready for the Jetsons era to hit. I'm ready for my pizza to land via drone, my Amazon book, although not many people are reading books, but I still am, land via drone. To me, it seems like it's decades away, but I think I'm wrong.
That's a good question. Again, whether it's decades away or a few years away, it all depends on how quickly we can get the regulations in and we can have people following those regulations.
So you're telling me it's not a technological issue in terms of getting commercial uses, it's a regulatory legal issue?
I think so, yes. I think it's more a regulatory issue than the technological issue because the drones that are available through manufacturers such as DJI or Parrot, they're very capable, they are safe.
But here's my question. I mean, the number of people we know that order off Amazon, it's endless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are there going to be drone bugs flying around
That's exactly
Amazon? And how do they not crash into each other?
And these are technologies that actually people are researching. We are researching it in our lab. How do you do sense and avoid? So if two drones
what is it called?
It's called sense and avoid.
Sense and avoid, got it.
Sense and avoid. So you have two drones, let's say Amazon and, I don't know,
Google.
eBay is delivering packages, and then they are flying towards each other. These are not even from the same company, so how do they recognize each other and determine that, oh, this flight path is going to lead me on a collision? So there must be technologies that we need to develop, that we need to certify.
Do we need air traffic controllers for drones?
For certain drones, there are going to be air traffic controllers. When you invade the national airspace and they meet specifications that are more towards aircraft than towards drones, then you will have the traffic control involved.
I mean, let's talk about Amazon because I'm fixated on it. I mean, as you may know, Amazon has a huge facility in San Bernardino. It's a massive warehouse. I have had packages. I order something from Amazon in the morning and it gets there in the afternoon, and I don't understand how that happens. Mm-hmm. But somehow it happens. I would presume that they could take off from San Bernardino and get to my home in Los Angeles. But how would that work? Do they have to get... How high do they need to fly? And is that part of the regulatory question?
Well, in that particular case, I'm not sure whether it's going to fly from San Bernardino all the way to Los Angeles.
You think that may be too far?
That's too far. So it might be that you have a distributor closer to your home. You can think of, let's say, in your neighborhood, 6 people ordered stuff from Amazon. And then you have a distributor close by, maybe less than a mile.
So it needs to be close?
Now, as far as the regulations go now, the vehicle has to be within the line of sight of the operator. So it cannot be beyond the line of sight of the operator. So you should have the visual of the vehicle. Otherwise, you can't fly a drone.
So that's a bit of a damper on commercial use, I would think.
I don't think so because...
But how?
We are not at a point yet where we can think of trusting these vehicles to go miles and miles.
Right, that's the avoid.
I don't know whether the technology is there yet, but we're certainly trying to develop those.
And I know you are trying to develop that with many of your students.
Yes.
Tell us about what's happening at Cal State Long Beach.
So I'm an aerospace engineering professor, so I teach my students basics of aerospace engineering. And in the classroom, obviously, I'm not able to get to the real building of these vehicles. And the unmanned aerial vehicles is a great way to get them involved. So I have a small lab where students on their own time come in and build these vehicles, understand how they operate, understand what their uses are, and some of them go ahead and try to determine new technologies that might be useful for actually deploying them for commercial use.
So how far off is this? I mean, give us a prediction if you can, at least on commercial use without line of sight, because to me that seems like...
Without line of sight?
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't want to...
What about line of sight?
With line of sight, less than 5 years.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Then where do we go?
That's a good question. I am not sure. But autonomous vehicles where you're not in the line of sight, that's going to come too.
What about Hollywood? What about underwater?
I think right now Hollywood is licensed to operate these vehicles in order to film. There are applications that you get through to get airworthiness certificate and things like that. And I think the film industry has applied for these quite a bit, and they have been granted certain exceptions.
And underwater?
Underwater, that's a good question again, because the technology there's less communication.
You'll come back?
Yes.
He's Praveen Shankar. He is a professor at Cal State Long Beach. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.